Bam! All right. MC is in the house. What's up, folks? My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chim, and welcome to the Warrior Stream. I am here every Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time, taking a topic deep dive and having a good time while doing it. And usually joined by the usual suspects along with some new people. And I appreciate you guys hanging out with me when you do. So let's hit it. All right. So getting a notification in order to broadcast on Twitter X, I need to have a premium subscription on X or stream. Oh, okay. So apparently because I don't have the check mark, I guess I can't, whatever. I'm just going to remove that because fuck them. All right. So what is going on today? Who do we got? All right. Corey says he's in before Jesse. What's up, Corey? What's up, Jesse? Good to see you guys. All right. Little Goose in the house. What's up, my dude? Good to see you. Johnny Groob in the house. Casetas. Good to see you, brother. Jamie, what's going on? My man up in Canada. Good. Got a good group today. All right. We got a pretty good topic, I think, for today. A little biased as I tend to be with these things. If you guys saw the email that went out this morning, I started it with one of my favorite Alan Watts quotes. And I'm going to read that quote. Alan Watts said, "A person who thinks all the time and has nothing, Jesus Christ. I don't think Alan Watts said it like that. Let's try again. Let me actually move the damn screen so I can see it. Oh, Jesus. A person who thinks all the time has nothing to think about except thoughts." Oh, man, it's going to be one of those days. "So he loses touch with reality and lives in a world of illusions." In honor and respect of Alan Watts, I'm going to attempt that one more time cleanly. A person who thinks all the time has nothing to think about except thoughts. So he loses touch with reality and lives in a world of illusions. Oof, finally got it out. One of my favorite Alan Watts quotes. And if you look at my philosophy, Alan Watts is one of those individuals in history that, man, I love hanging out with, right? And that's me listening to his talks, reading his books, sometimes agreeing, sometimes not in my head, sometimes fist pumping, but sometimes yelling at him, sometimes disagreeing. Alan Watts is, I think, a very, very formidable thinker. And not only did he have a formidable ability to think and process information, I think what made him unique and puts him in a category, unto himself, is that he was one of these people who refused to live in a box. He originally was going to be, I think, an Anglican priest, and then went the Eastern route, and to this day is criticized by Buddhists as misrepresenting their beliefs. It's like, I don't assign much value to the boxes and people's criticism of him not fitting neatly in any of them. What I know is that when I listen to Alan Watts, it forces me to contemplate the things that I believe in a way that winds up having me be more at the end of the process. I, too, aspire to be such an influence on the people that I come into contact with. There's so many people that I hang around, that I live around, that I commune with, that I interact with, that I'm tribally connected to, that agree with me, that we're so significantly overlapped. And yet there are other people who will find one or two positions that I share to be as seamlessly overlapped with their position as can be, but everything else is about as polarized as possible. That's a very, very common experience for me, and I've accepted that as being, my role as it pertains to connecting with people through social media and outside of my tribe. Some of these things that I say you are going to disagree with. I will say that that's okay. The reason why it's okay is because I don't fucking care. There are going to be some things that we do agree with. And those things that we do agree with, I tend to share positions that I've done some thinking on, have had some experience in. And if it is something that resonates with you, there's probably going to be a little bit more power behind it that you could benefit from, which is my purpose for doing this, right? So today, if you guys saw the comical, this is the first time that I did a thumbnail for a show, and I put a Mid-Journey prompt in, and the first image that came out is the one I used. That like never happens. Usually, like I give myself 20 minutes to make a thumbnail. It's usually like an hour because I'm like, no, it's got to move it here. Or sometimes I'll make a whole bunch of iterations of a picture, and then it'll give me something that starts moving in a different direction, and I change the whole plan for the show based on this new image I got. But today, I literally, let me find the prompt. Let me find the prompt that I put in. So today's prompt was: a fat man wearing an American flag shirt yells at his computer screen. And then I put the aspect ratio data in. But pretty much spot on. I'm the one that took it and then added the freedom overlaid on top of it afterwards. But what's the point of it? So I named this show Useless Idiots, somewhat satirizing the useful idiots found in many Marxist regimes and revolutions, Marxist revolutions, pretty much denoting those people who bought in to the idea that gave the power and permission to those people who eventually took control. The rallying cries were being cast, and a bunch of people responded in a way that the ne'er-do-wells, the power grabbers, did not meet any resistance along the way to the top. Those were the useful idiots. Well, in this day and age, I think we've devolved somewhat to useless idiots. Now, one of the things that I wrote in today's email: many a man today is capable of little more than getting fired up to do things for which he's not capable, right? There's a paradox involved in that. There's a paradox that so many people, if you guys, I don't know if you guys saw the other day, I don't know if it was 2 days ago, 3 days ago, I made my little diagram, my complaining, why are you complaining diagram, and the flow chart. And the logic of it, I've shared this with you guys before. If somebody's complaining, ask them if there's anything you could do about it. If the answer is no, then the response should be shut the fuck up about it. Nobody wants to hear. If the answer is yes, they can do something about it, then I would encourage you to encourage them to go and do it. Once they've done it, they can now shut the fuck up about it. If they haven't done it, then they shouldn't be talking about it until they've done it. In other words, I believe in an action-oriented philosophy. You guys have heard me say before, movement is mandatory. Well, what does that mean? It's the exact response to the Alan Watts quote, right? Again, a person who thinks all the time has nothing to think about except thoughts. When you look at some of the philosophies that were born out of the 20th century, probably earlier, but 20th century, specifically Marxism, that's the best case example I could think of in the moment, where basically somebody sat down and just thought these great thoughts, completely detached from reality, completely detached from the feedback loop that reality provides, and just found out and figured out a system that was born in the reality of their own imagination and completely disconnected. Well, here's the thing. If all you're doing is thinking, all you're thinking about are your thoughts, that cycle, right, that closed set of information can mutate and permeate all you want. It is still going to have the same amount of limited information than the individual who's standing next to you that might have a fraction of your intelligence, might have a fraction of your ambition, might have a fraction of your mental toughness and grit, but he actually makes contact with the real world. He is always going to be more valuable than you are in reality. And that's where we all live. So when people share these I refer to society today as a big game of Dungeons and Drag Queens, right? Where it's almost like a LARPing version of reality based on the rule set that we're more comfortable with, right? You ever go to somebody's house and like play Monopoly? I used to do this growing up in teenagers. Like, even though I grew up in the Bronx, like me and my friends would play Monopoly. It's just one of those things. And depending on whose house you were playing in, you had your own little rules. Like, do the fines go in the middle? Does the guy that lands, on go, does he get it? Do you like? Do you can you make side deals when it's not your turn? Like, there's all these special rules that we could apply to a game that already came with rules, right? Well, in reality, we have a rule set also. It's called physics, where there are people who want to defy physics. They want to ignore those rule set that we were given, and they want to customize it for their experience. And the thing is, in an aquarium like we have, right, one of the symptoms of surplus is that people can create their own rules. There are people who get anxiety when they're in nature. When they're in a natural environment, they get anxiety. It's too quiet. The nighttime is too dark. I'm hearing all these weird sounds. They have this, and I've actually been in the woods with somebody before who like felt this sort of impending doom that all of the bugs that they were hearing were going to attack them at some point. Like a fucking grasshopper. It has nothing better to do than to fucking eat your face off while you're sleeping or some shit. And you think about how dysfunctional the trajectory of evolution we must have experienced, that we cannot even be in nature without experiencing anxiety. I'm born and raised in the city. There are still times now where I'm in the city and I'm feeling less and less functional. I grew up in the city. I haven't taken as an example, I haven't taken a city bus or a train in over 20 years. I don't want to get on one. I honestly feel like if I were to be on a train, and some of you guys are experiencing this today, some of you guys may have experienced it this morning. I remember going to work in Manhattan and being on the train, and at the time wearing a suit, and the train stopping like it always does in the middle of who knows where in some fucking tunnel, lights flickering on and off, and you're shoulder to shoulder with people. You smell the people next to you. Sometimes, chance forbid, the AC wasn't working, a completely different experience entirely. And I just think about how much I was willing to accept when I was that person in terms of the setting that I was going to achieve a level of equilibrium in so easily. It's not that I would have panic attacks now or some sort of claustrophobic attack if I was in a train. It's just that I think now more than ever, I would have to consciously find that baseline. It would take work. It would take energy to sort of normalize or just bring all the anomalous stray voltage down to the point where I could be functional. But there are people today that act like that all day long, that you put them in the woods and they're losing their minds. When we look at people today and we start, trying to map the line to where we get to the point where we'd call somebody a useless idiot, it's these people that I see in America today. What's the motivation for me even thinking of this today? It's the people that I see today that are so energized to debate politics. They're so energized to debate, abortion or Ukraine or Putin or whatever is going on. And listen, like where my positions are and the logic that exists in those topics is not even what we're talking about today. What I'm talking about, again, is the paradox. The people who are losing their mind because there's this imminent threat to democracy, right? That fucking catchphrase, threat to democracy. Yet they're overweight, they're unhealthy, they're poor, they have a terrible relationship with their wives. Their kids are unhealthy. Their kids are scared. Their kids are either obese or underweight, neglected. Strangers are influencing their children more than they are. These people live in dirty places with no desire or ambition to clean the places in which they live. It's like they can't even clean the front of the apartment building they look at because they think everybody else should be doing it, or the janitor, the super of the building should be cleaning here, even though this is the front of the building in which they live. Like, there's this disconnect, but they want to talk about things at a scale that there's not any of the accountability. And I think that's what makes these people idiots. Number one is that they're not really tracking what matters. And the label of useless that goes in front of it means they're living a life that's not even making them more formidable as a man or a woman. There's no inherent increase in value as their life goes on. They're not physically capable. They're not emotionally capable. They're not financially capable. They're not tribally capable. But they're really angry and they're really comfortable. I think it's an anomaly in history, where people could be so angry yet so comfortable at such a scale. Usually it would take, like, I'm shooting off the cuff here. It might take an aristocracy, right? A monarchy, some sort of, just power that somebody was born into, that they get bored and they get frustrated and they don't know any better because they're so spoiled and they have experienced such surplus in their lives. They don't really know that they shouldn't be as upset about life as they are. And I would say, symptoms of surplus being what they are, I think that's what we're observing at a much lower level of society. And I say lower, specifically talking about socioeconomic status. You have people who really aren't producing a lot, really haven't accumulated a lot, really aren't that far away from not having something to eat, not having a shelter. But because they have never been responsible for that insulating barrier from that terrible form of reality, because somebody else has always provided it, they feel not only that they're entitled to it, but they rely on it never going away. I remember a story I read about these people who were making their dogs sick because the people were vegans and they decided that their dog was going to be vegan too. And turns out that's not really healthy for dogs. And I just thought about, like, just how entitled these individuals must be, entitled to their own reality, because there's no feedback, there's no connection to reality that they hold themselves accountable to. And I think that's what you see. I'll show you, I think, a related story, changing gears somewhat. There's this YouTube channel that I follow, right? And I'm not going to say the guy's name. And he had a bunch of like music mixes, I guess. I don't know, like an hour's worth of music. And he's not the one making the music. He's like a DJ, brings people around. And the guy's from South Africa. And there was this one video that just one day, it was like a lo-fi thing. And I'm always listening to lo-fi music in the background when I'm working and stuff. So I was like, all right, let me try this. And I listened to it. And this like hour, whatever it is, 50 minutes, was just an incredible like set of songs. And I would listen to it all the time. That's like on my downloaded like playlist of videos to listen to. And the other day he had another video up, and like, I don't follow the guy really, just that one video that I watch from time to time because of the collection of songs. And I said, you know what, let me give this guy a shot, watching another one of his videos. It was a more recent one, and a black guy from Africa. And on like the second or third song, there starts to be this, when you live in a racist society, it's not enough to be to not be racist. You have to be anti-racist, or you're like, this is like what's happening over the music. And, sometimes I could be like like the elderly guy that doesn't understand the internet. That's what I must seem like, because like, I get it. Like, this guy's doing what he's going to do. Most people, I'd imagine, and maybe this is being biased somewhat, but I'd imagine younger generations would just either not give a shit and just dismiss it, which I'm not necessarily opposed to, or they would just say, unfollow or whatever. But I felt compelled, because this guy is like, he's probably in his 20s, maybe 30s. I'm almost 50 years old. I felt compelled to like give him some feedback. And I said something to the effect of, we don't need the racist, anti-racist stuff here. It kills the vibe. That's not what the music's about. Something to that effect. And should I have wrote it? Should I have not? Who gives a fuck? I felt like writing it and I wrote it. He gets back to me, right? And this guy's not a huge channel. I don't know. He's got about 50,000 subscribers, something like that. So he's not at that untouchable, people are managing his shit level yet, I guess. But within a day, he responded to me. And he responded, all the voiceover is saying is to just enjoy the music and bring ourselves together as one in the music, something like that. And it's like, that's not what it fucking said. And I might have just shared the quote and said, good luck with everything, just shared the quote. But the frustration I found was that this is not what we're here for, right? This is not what we're here for. I'll give you another example. Sticker Mule, the company Sticker Mule. The other day they came out, this is after the assassination attempt on Trump. They came out in support of Trump. And they said, basically, we support him. And a lot of people hide from supporting him. We're not going to hide. We still want you to do business. We still, basically like, listen, this doesn't change our relationship on our end, but we're just putting it out there. We support Trump. And we think that the violence is deplorable, yada, yada, yada. I immediately found myself in somewhat of a dilemma, because this guy shared some stuff about the racist thing. And I was like, come on, that's not what we're here for. But then on the other end, like, this guy's talking about something that I believe in, that I support also. Should I be just as offended? But I wasn't. And it's like, fuck, man. I guess I'm not as offended. The guy's saying, and I actually just ordered a shirt, because I felt like it was the thing, because I knew this guy was going to get hammered, right? And maybe that was a distinction between the two. One guy was going to get hammered, the other guy wasn't. But I think the point of it is that everybody chooses the scale of their reality. Everybody. The problem is that too many people, dysfunctional level of people today, choose a scale in which to exist, and they ignore all the other ones. I've said before, like, you have these people that are like, voting doesn't do anything. You're an idiot if you vote. Well, no, you're an idiot if you think your vote is going to have more power than one person voting has. The reason an American citizen, for example, should vote is because it doesn't fucking cost you anything. And as soon as we remove the idea of voting to have an elected representative government, as soon as we say, okay, we don't need to vote anymore, like, what do you think? We're ever going to get that back? But it's one of these things that doesn't affect who I am to my family. It doesn't affect who I am to my clients and my businesses. It doesn't affect any other scale. It's just it's who I am displayed or demonstrated congruently at that particular scale. But you have people that exist, like the guy that I put on the image, right? The thumbnail. On purpose, big fat guy, flags everywhere, talking about my freedom. It's like, yeah, freedom's important. I get it. I don't disagree. The reason he's a useless idiot is because at every other scale of his life, this hypothetical figure that AI created for my thumbnail, every other scale of his life, he is not doing anything with that freedom. He is not being bound in any way by the restrictions of freedom on his life, because there's an argument that somebody who is that unhealthy, this hypothetical guy, there's an argument that he has too much freedom, right? It's like, what do you do? Like when they put people in straitjackets. Oh, well, he could be a harm to himself or somebody else. It's like, yeah. Well, what about the person that's eating themselves to death? Do they have the right to do it? Absolutely. But aren't they a harm to themselves at that point? I don't think they should not be. I don't think that, just get this right. I'm just pointing out the inconsistency. Why do all these people that are complaining about, Donald Trump is a Nazi, it's this and that, and you'll see just an inconsistent display of the pursuit of happiness at the level of self in these individuals? Like, why does your philosophy have you walking around so it's such a negative state all the time? Why are you so angry all the time? Why are you so uneasy, unsettled all the time? Like, there's a point where we'd have to ask ourselves, what is the priority of our efforts? Like, investing our time and energy, where should we be investing this if we're going to create a priority list? And I have yet to hear the argument against investing in yourself first. You have to get your shit right. If you can't get your shit right, what is the context of anything that you do outside of that scale? If you don't have your shit together, what is the political at a national level identity that you're basing your position on? Like, what is the reality that you think you're going to be more effective at living in if you can't even take care of your own shit? Now, I'm not saying, listen, you gotta have a mansion. You gotta have I heard a guy the other day, one of these fucking 20-somethings that's going to help you be a millionaire if you just, get on that discovery call with them. They're going to show you the secret to being a millionaire. And talks about, one of his goals is being able to, or no, has actually had to rent a private jet, and he has the picture with him on the private jet with his friends. Who knows? There was like 10 of them. Maybe they each chipped in, to have this photo op, whatever. That's because we all know that that's how it really works. But you have this kid, and I'm going to use him as just an easy example of just the idiocy of today's society, representing success as being able to be in a private jet. It's like you're making it as a man if you're in a private jet. Obviously, that's fucking retarded. There weren't private jets, 100 years ago. Maybe there were, but you understand my point. This whole idea of the private jet being the placeholder for, what it represents in terms of success, it's a fairly new thing. So the trinkets and the representatives like that, we can't get bogged down by that. We have to actually look at the values. Right? There's a time now where, or at this time now, when it comes to men, I've bodybuilded before, right? Gotten on stage in my underwear, did my poses and everything. All these years later, and guys that bodybuild, don't get mad, but I look at those and a little gay, just a little gay. I don't know. I was experimenting with bodybuilding back in the day, and I decided to not do it anymore. Let's just say I don't feel as comfortable about the whole idea as I once did. But now, which is very prevalent on social media, is you're not a man if you're not shredded, right? And again, we have to make the distinction here. There's a difference between healthy and unhealthy, functional and dysfunctional. I myself, I'm heavier than I should be right now, but nowhere near where I used to be. I go on a hike every day. I lift weights every day. I do everything a man needs to do. I am functional. There's an argument I didn't even have a six-pack when I actually bodybuilded. I was a terrible bodybuilder. But there's a point where it's like, okay, we're following, again, the representative for success, and we're losing sight of the success. We're following the placeholder and we're losing sight of the mission. When I talk about what's a rule follower, rule followers are the ones that will do everything to value themselves based on their level of compliance with the rules. But the people who are that dysfunctionally connected to the rules completely separate themselves from pursuing what the mission is. If I were to have 10 5-year-olds, and I think I used an example like this in an email the other day. If I had 10 5-year-olds draw a map from this tree to that house over there, all right, let's say we're in a park. There's a tree and a house, easy. Everybody draw a map. Every single one of these maps will look different, even though every single one of them might be accurate, right? Let's assume that, draw a tree, draw a house, draw a line, like it's going to be some semblance of that. They're all going to be different. The houses are going to be drawn differently. Some people, they draw a house with a little 3D, perspective line, that third dimension. Some people draw a tree with a wide trunk. Some do a stick trunk, like all these differences are going to be there, but everybody's going to be able to say, okay, if I'm at this tree, this is how I get to that house. Meaning the mission of the spirit of what the job was is being accomplished. Well, in society today, you have people that have completely disconnected from that mission-based thinking. So who are the useless idiots? They're the ones that are arguing for all the things that we're supposed to argue about. But they're in no way connected to all the things they're arguing about is supposed to afford them the ability to do. Life, liberty, the pursuit of property, and happiness, right? Like all these things, how are you so free and so fucking miserable? I don't understand how these people think it. You know what? What's the quote I put in today's email? The anxiety you feel for not having control is the very lack of control you're anxious about. There's a reason why stress and anxiety and depression are so high today. It's because we were not raised battling survival. We were not raised not knowing if we were going to eat. Now, it might seem counterintuitive to say that. Well, yeah, I would imagine if we didn't know where the fuck our food was coming from, we would be even more stressed. Well, here's the thing. All pain is training. If you were trained from a young age to not be entitled to anything you had, you are much less likely to have this dysfunctional reality or relationship with reality that so many people in this generation tend to have. My daughter was depressed. I'm going to piss some people off with this, and I don't mean to, but listen, I got to follow what my brain throws out there. My daughter was so depressed because she was getting bullied in school. She started cutting herself. She was withdrawn, and eventually, she said that she was having suicidal ideation. Like, listen, I get it. It happens. But what the fuck is she really complaining about? And this isn't an attack against a teenage girl who's going through all that shit, not having the tools to be able to do a reality. But the point is, I'm making the larger observation of what is it with our children in this particular example that they have so much yet see themselves as being so deficient. They have so many opportunities and assets, yet see themselves as being victims of circumstance. This is the thing that I see that is most destructive in men and women today. You do not have gratitude for everything that exists from the level of self scaled up all the way to the level of your transcendent beliefs and alliances. We should be grateful for it all. The spectrum that I've offered before on the other end of gratitude is entitlement. So by my logic, if you're not grateful for it, you're entitled to it. And if you're entitled to it, the presupposition is that somebody is already tasked with providing it for you, providing it to you. That's what entitlement's about. So sure, you have an attitude of entitlement, whether known or unbeknownst to you, consciously or subconsciously. you are still sitting on a whole bunch of assets and resources that you almost ignore. Like it's white noise. You have a car, you have food, you have a house, you have friends, you have clothes, you have a computer, you have a phone. And then the entitled person says, yeah, but everybody has that. What's the big deal? Yeah, I have all these things, but this guy, he called me ugly. It's like, what the fuck are we talking about here? This is the useless idiot, right? So I think that with all the arguing that goes on lately with the left and right, and listen, I do my fair share. Let's not get it twisted. I think it's worth taking a step back and saying, well, all right, everybody's got their preferences. But if we were to get our way, whatever way that means, aren't we supposed to be happy at the end of it? Aren't we supposed to be fulfilled at least at the end of it? Aren't we supposed to be productive at the end of it, creative at the end of it? Because I see a lot of people that seem to just identify themselves in the fight itself. There is no building of who they are as an individual because they don't have a relationship as an individual. You'll hear a lot of people talk poorly about tribalism, right? And there's certainly applications of tribes and the tribal-minded that are dysfunctional, that are unsustainable, that are incompatible with our idea of, a free, people where we've codified the rights of individuals. Like, certainly there are certain tribal, applications that aren't congruent with that. But what is tribalism if not a bunch of individuals being themselves together? That's what tribe is. It has to be the individual. If you smash out the individual, right, you just cut off the offset that makes the person an individual in a group, then you have a fraction of the person. When you look at the almost erosion that occurs organically in any group, any alliance, any group alliance, i.e. tribe, there's a natural erosion that occurs. The reason that erosion occurs is because every individual is also moving as an individual, and they're going to be stimulated in different directions. It's very hard to keep everybody on mission over a long period of time. But that same aspect of who they are, and if left unchecked and unmanaged, will erode a tribe, is also responsible for the tribe's ability to absorb change in the environment. Think about the suspension on a car. When it's done really, really well, the car will be driving over rocks and it'll look like it is as level as can be. It's because we found ways to create movement to absorb the impact of the stressors of the environment. Well, that's what individuals tend to do. There are a lot of tribes in history that could have been, by any agreed upon criteria for what a cult is, they could have been a cult. And in their first generation of leadership, second generation of leadership could have been productive. Like no one would have had anything to argue about saying it was bad. But then they reach a certain, generation of leadership where suddenly it takes a turn. So it's not the fact that a bunch of people are so collectively connected in their identities that's inherently bad. It's the application. It's when you have a tribe that now looks to demonize individuality. But it's not even like, yeah, you're not gonna follow what we're doing, you need to go. That's one way of managing a tight group without becoming, tyrannical. I won't even say cultish, I'll say tyrannical. But the tyrannical tribe, the one that is usually labeled with the bad term cult, even though that's just a cognitive culture, right? Like whatever. But the bad one is the one that says you're not acting like this, but you can't leave. We're going to make you act like this, right? That's the difference. The distinction is, getting rid of somebody as opposed to forcing them to comply. Right? In TRIBALNOMICS, I talk about the archetype of the tyrant. That's exactly what it is. But again, getting back to useless idiots, It's like you have all these people that are fighting on both sides of the aisle. What are you fighting for? Is it to be more productive? Is it to eventually get along with everybody? Is it to be happy, healthy? Is it to have the freedom to pursue your own personal individualized interest? What is it for? And I think these people haven't done that math. They haven't figured it out. They don't know why they're there, right? Using the map from the tree to the house before. They see the tree, they see the map, but they have no interest in going to the house. They just want to argue how fucked up the map is. This isn't to scale. That isn't to scale. This is off direction. Like they're missing the point of it all. One of the questions I posed in the email this morning, if you're not getting my email, you should be. One of the questions I posed is, how do we move beyond the temptation to spend our days reduced to thinking about thoughts? Well, what's the answer? I thought of this idea for today's show while I was on my hike this morning. Admittedly, I'm walking through the woods. I'm listening to Alan Watts in one of my ears. I'm listening to the woods wake up in the other. I was out there pretty early, right at the at sunrise. And it was just like, what am I going to sit in my, because I have the lab here, right? This is my own personal office, and it is as customized as can be. I'm always adding, changing things, trying to just make it cooler, a cooler place to be. AC, so literally cool as well. That being said, being in the woods is more stimulating than the maximally customized environment that my office could be. I don't know if you guys saw on Instagram today, I shared a couple of pictures. One was of a salamander. One was of a turtle. I had never seen a turtle on one of my hikes. I saw a turtle today. Yesterday, I saw a pretty large water snake chilling in the creek. I see deer all the time. Foxes. Whenever I see a fox, it's incredible to me. I see people sometimes on the trails, and I'm usually scaring the shit out of some poor lady who was just looking to hike, and she runs into me in the middle of the woods. This happened the other day, and immediately I was talking to my mastermind guys, and I said, I have a strategy. Now, I will say this strategy was first shared with me by a good friend of mine, best dog trainer I've ever seen, Jesse. He is your dog's favorite uncle on Instagram. And I've seen him work with dogs. And Jesse's like a 6 foot, very masculine Cuban guy from Florida. He dresses a little, whatever, but he's from Miami, so he gets a pass, right? But he's a man's man. But when he trains dogs, he looks like he's auditioning for the fucking birdcage. And in the beginning, I didn't understand, like, what the fuck is happening here? And he explained it to me. He's like, and he would tell me and trying to help me. He's the one that taught me what I know about training dogs. And he would say, Justin, you're just too much. You're too much, like just too much on the dogs. And the dogs, like, they're cowering. He goes, what you need to do is be a little bit more flamboyant. You need to be a little bit more, because I always tell him he has this eccentric energy about him, right? Basically, because I don't want to call a good friend of mine gay, because he's not gay. But he's got that flamboyance, we could say, right? When he's training dogs. Well, sure as shit, when I started applying that to training dogs, I started actually making progress. I could not anticipate just how much of an almost imposing energy I was having, on the dogs when I was training them. But getting back now to the hiking. So what's my hiking protocol? Whenever I run into and it could be not usually a guy, usually a couple or just a woman, I turn into like a gay hippie sort of. And the other day, I saw this woman, and she saw me. Oh my God, I am not overstating it when I say there was fucking terror in her eyes. We're in the middle of the woods, and it's like we just happen to come upon this turn where I see her, she sees me, and immediately I go right into character, right? So I happen to hike with bug nets usually when I'm back there. She didn't have one on, right, which was kind of emasculating to me when I saw that. But fuck that. I don't like having bugs in my nose and my ears and shit. Whatever. So I see her, and immediately, before she could even react, I already see the terror on her face. I go, "Oh my God, you don't even have a bug net on. You're much braver than I am. Enjoy your hike." And I like pranced past her. Oh man, I'm sitting there and I'm just laughing. And now as I'm passing her, I'm laughing, but to myself, because I don't want her to hear me laughing. Can you imagine somebody says that in the woods and they pass you and you hear laughing behind you? It's like, that would be even creepier. But this is the impact that I know I have to manage sometimes with people. I'll be honest with you. I have no idea how I got on this fucking tangent. I just started laughing, thinking about the memory. Let's get to some comments here. What's going on? All right. So we got Corey says they're dudes who really look like that and they think they're going to take care of business during the Civil War. Oh, you're talking about the thumbnail. Yeah, and that's another thing. It's like, we're going to have there's going to be a civil war. There's going to be a lot of violence in the streets. It's like, motherfucker, can you run upstairs? Can you walk downstairs? Can you run or walk, period? I train martial arts, right? And what's today? Wednesday. It's Sunday. I was rolling with one of my black belts. And I can go. I can't go very long, though, but I can go. I need to test myself every once in a while to make sure I can go. Because if I need to go, I need to have some faith in my capabilities. When I see some of these people that dedicate absolute no time to movement, talking about how they're so ready to get after it if shit pops off, it's like, all right, I guess that's what you're doing, but you'll get a lot of this, and I shouldn't say this, but I mean this sincerely. I've observed this disproportionately in the shooting world. There are a lot of people who I remember I was teaching at an event a few years ago, and there was a guy who was an incredible shooter. Incredible by my standards. He was an incredible shooter, right? And he was getting after it on his AR, doing some pistol work, and the guy knew what he was doing, but he was morbidly obese. And I, went up to him at some point during the event and said, when are you going to lose some fucking weight? Because listen, you got this whole shooting thing down pat. Somebody puts their hands on you, though. I'm pretty sure that you're not going to have a fucking thing for them. And there's just a level of capability that you're not bringing to an engagement. And it's of your own doing. This guy wasn't an old guy. He was perfectly capable of getting himself in shape. But like a lot of people, he has a comfort zone. He knows what he's good at, and he likes to spend a lot of time there. It's like Aquaman doesn't want to leave the water. It's like, Aquaman, we're meeting up here. He's like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I got Bluetooth. I hear you guys. He doesn't want to leave the water because in the water, he's a fucking superhero, right? So it's really, you see this again. It doesn't need to be a value judgment. It's just spotlighting the inconsistency, right? The hypocrisy, we could say, the contradiction. That's what we should be looking to eliminate. We're always going to have preferences. But if we are contradicting ourselves and then looking to hide or mask, create shadows that we can hide those inconsistencies in, I'm the guy that's going to shout you out, right? Casera says, I've learned from this platform that success is who you become by climbing your ladder. That's the way it works, man. That is the way it works. I was on the call this morning with my mastermind guys, and I was talking about application aside, the concept was, nobody says you need to be perfect. It's just like, do you have a plan? And are you moving consistently towards that plan? If you guys haven't gotten mastered the 24-hour cycle, my balance management program, link is in the description. It's free. I'm giving it away for free. There's a component of that program that I labeled brick sessions. And brick sessions are basically time blocks that we dedicate every day towards a separate project. So like every day, if you were to look on my board here, I have mobility drills, and I could say that there's a progression that I'm doing that I've gotten much better at over the years. I have a cursive, right? Every day I work on my cursive, right? So that's one of the things I do. Every day I work on my jiu-jitsu. I saw Brazilian. I immediately put jiu-jitsu. Portuguese, I work on my Portuguese. Like I have a collection of things that I do every single day that I dedicate a session of time to. Every day, the idea is that it's a brick. And with these bricks, they get stacked on each other, and I will eventually build structures. You don't have to do everything in a day. You don't have to do everything at once. You just have to do everything that needs to be done, because what else are you going to do? What else should you do aside from the things that should be done? At a logical, level, you have to sort of be able to jive with that, because that is the way that your life is going to benefit from design. Corey writes, people use concepts like racism, hate speech, fascism as a justification for their powerful victim complex. They identify these concepts as whatever makes them upset at the time. Absolutely right. I've been in plenty of debates over the years with people who have, usually black people in this particular context, that have complained about racism and slavery and yada, yada, yada. And the way that you win those arguments is you put up a little bit of a fight, and when they're pushing back to the best of their ability, you just pull the rug out from under them and you go, you know what? You're right. With everything that was done to your ancestors, we need to take care of you because you're incapable of doing it yourself. So we have to make sure that you're okay. We have to take care of you. No, I insist. We'll take care of you. Do you need some money? Do you need some food? Do you need me to help you? Can you read that? You want me to read that for you? Like as soon as they have the script flipped on them, that is like the thing that wakes up their fucking identity. We're like, I didn't say that. I didn't. It's like, oh, you are capable. You are worth the shit. You do have a little bit of fire somewhere in there. And that's the joke of it all. It's that just how they don't know what they're winning when they're trying to argue and win a debate with you about them being a victim. It's like at the end of it, we all agree that you're a victim. That's not something that's a good thing necessarily, right? If you're trying to get resources in an aquarium like this, sure, it is a strategy that's proved useful. But in a general sense, between two individuals, like there's no utility there. You're just a bitch. It's like, all right, I guess you're a bitch. So we can't rely on you because your great grandfather, got whipped by your other great grandfather. Because that happens a lot, right? What else? Magoo, my man Magoo. I love being American, but I'm 5 not having the right to vote. I'm single with no children, own no land. I don't feel responsible enough to uphold the law of the land until my shit is together. You know what? I agree completely with the sentiment. People have said before, I think it was Ann Coulter who probably put this out most, I guess, overtly, that everything went to shit when women were allowed to vote. I don't have enough skin in that game, argument-wise, to even share any of those positions or to have those conversations because I don't give a fuck either way. But I will say there are a lot of people who have no value, but their ability to influence how everybody else lives. I don't think it's necessarily the ideal. When the country was formed, it's my understanding that if you didn't own land, you weren't allowed to vote anyway, right? Jamie quotes from the saga of Grettir, there are few more certain tokens of evil than an inability to accept the good. Old wisdom stands the test of time for a reason. Corey writes, kids need to overcome adversity to build self-confidence and self-esteem, but entitlement has redefined adversity as victimization. Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And that's what entitlement does. It means that when your desire to be, or your position, your acceptance that you are entitled to something while simultaneously not having it, already puts you in victim status. Somebody has taken or stopped the supply of something you were supposed to be in possession of. So entitlement, is exactly one of the things that's driving victimization, and it's minehood. This is a comment, I think, on what I was talking about earlier. Some tribes value the individual, others do not. I agree completely. Reminds me of a chick I know, a baby chicken, because you certainly wouldn't be referring to women like that. I once made a joke that I was going to finally come out with a book for mindset for women, and I was going to title it Broadly Speaking. But I digress. I'm here all week. Tip your waiter. Reminds me of a chick I know who has depression, anxiety, PTSD, and what have you in her Instagram bio, LOL, because she seems to only want to identify with all that negative crap for some kind of attention and or sympathy. Absolutely. It's one of the things too that, and I haven't done a lot of research on this, but women tend to have lower libidos than men. That's pretty, well accepted fact. So I think there is something to a lot of women classifying themselves as victimization and then just feeding on the energy and attention they get from these simps that want to, be there to protect them and help them and do all these white knightish nonsensical things, but ultimately really just want to get laid. So it's sort of like, I was going to say it's like fishing, but I don't want any like double entendres or anything. I just meant it's like she is attracting them with her sexuality. Do we call that fishing? Can we call that fishing? Oh, I'm having way too much fun during this talk. All right. Take that. My man Ryan, what up? See you in a couple days. Big Mike, greatest plumber in the state of Idaho, guys. See you at the top. My man Mike. Magoo says, MC, we have people in power in our country who believe certain tasks are on another person's job when they have the power to create the change themselves. Well, that's what winds up happening. So think about it this way. We hear the story of like the soldier jumping on the grenade to protect his brothers, right? And I don't know, like that's probably, I'm imagining, has played itself out hundreds of times, thousands of times, I don't know, right? But I accept that that's a thing. One of the inherent qualities of that group dynamic is the individual sees himself and who he is in those people that he is sacrificing himself for, or there would not be a sacrifice. If I saw my neighbor or my cousin or, one of my kids or somebody like in the way about to get, run over by a car, I would risk my own safety to help them. There is a point where if it's somebody who I know is a bad person or somebody who I know is not a valuable person, I would have to contemplate, and probably while I'm contemplating to get run over, right? But I would have to contemplate, what is the outcome? What would I be sacrificing myself for? Is my family better off? And again, I don't even have to put the position there. It just offer the structure, the framework for the contemplation. It's something that we need to make peace with. Well, taking that whole, idea and concept and applying it or putting it up against what Magoo had just shared, it's like when you have somebody that has the power to fix something, but they look to deflect and defer responsibility for fixing it to somebody else. One of the things I know, given the framework that I had just described in another application, one of the things I know is they don't see themselves as part or connected to the people who would benefit from them doing it themselves, while simultaneously thinking that it is better for them to not do it because the benefit of not doing it outweighs the consequence of not doing it. Like, these are the factors that are at play. When you see the fucking mope DMV worker who's got an attitude and acts like you're an asshole because you needed to go somewhere, that actually pays for her fucking life, or living. It's like, why is she acting like an asshole? Why is she taking forever? Why? Because she can. Because she can. There's no consequence for doing otherwise, for doing that. There's no incentive, in other words, for acting otherwise. These are the elements that are at play. So when we look at what we incentivize and what we disincentivize, right? What we reward, what we punish, that is the conditioning that everybody's being subjected to, beat to beat, moment to moment, day to day, week to week, etc. So when you see somebody who has developed a pattern of behavior, that pattern is the sum total of all the conditioning factors that they're exposed to. We know the phrase, oh, this guy, he acts like he's never been punched in the face before. I know a lot of guys like act like that. Well, what's one of the things that I could pretty much be certain of? They've never been punched in the face, and they also don't have what getting punched in the face would have given them. When you get really aggressive, like teenagers who are aggressive with against grown men who have grown men strength, it's like a thing. Now, I had to go through it where I thought I was badass until I realized that they're strong for a 13-year-old, and then they're strong. Right? Sometimes you got to learn these lessons the hard way. All pain is training, right? But that is the snapshot that I would offer everybody to benefit from noticing. It's just, they do what they can get away with, because it really begs the question, why would they not? To which the answer, whether some people acknowledge this or not, some people might not even be aware of it, but they're sort of expecting people to do the right thing. To which I would respond, the right thing for whom? Because if it's a right thing that's supposed to benefit you, the presumption you're making is that person and you are perceived by that person to be in the same tribe. They should do the right thing. Why should they do the right thing? Right? Doesn't make any sense. Aaron says, speaking of your hike, my original comment from right when the show started was about those pics and it disappeared. Please tell me it still exists. I'm going up. Sorry, darling, ain't there. I don't see it. All right, what else we got? If you have to wrestle your own gut to unholster your farm, you need to go back to day one in your training. Everybody needs a plan. Everybody needs a plan. It's like if you're hanging out at 300 pounds right now, 280, whatever, you are morbidly obese. Let's say you're 300 pounds. What's the plan? The plan is to get to 299. That's the plan. I'm going to get down to 225. Motherfucker, get to 299. And then you know what the plan's going to be? Get to 298. And that's the way it works, because you got a moment to move, a beat to move. The collection of them, we start to connect together and create bigger, arbitrary blocks of time, right? I settled on the 24-hour cycle because to me, that is a very natural, cyclical chunk of time that would be good for somebody to invest in improving, how they manage their days. But it's like, oh, I'm going to get this. I'm going to do this. I'm like, focus, motherfucker. Your day, like my wife right now, right? She's doing carnivore for July and she's crushing it. She's still doing it, not enjoying it, but she's crushing it. And the other day we're talking and, I gave her some feedback and I said, I think you'll benefit most from just saying today, I'm going to eat this, and that, like not, There's a time where we say, oh, I'm halfway there, only 2 days left, 1 day left, only a week left. Like, there is some value and some time for when that's necessary. But you don't want to prematurely start pulling those cards because you might not ever need them, right? I remember when I did the 9-day water fast. It wasn't, 3 more days, 2 more days. That wasn't something that I used. One of the things that I actually noticed at the end of the 9 days was that it's like, man, maybe I should keep going, because it wasn't that bad, because I made sure that I controlled the story that I was telling myself about my experience. I dwelled and focused on the positive aspects of it. You know, the fact that, listen, not everybody has the willpower to do a 9-day water fast. I gave myself credit for that. I allowed it to make me feel better about the process. I didn't fill my days with, 3 days left. Oh, I can't wait. Oh man, I can't wait to eat food. When I eat, I'm going to eat this, and then I'm going to eat this. And it's just a way to be able to more productively write the story that you're following, right? Fucking A. All right. Holy shit. Over an hour. Damn. Aaron writes, boo, I was just saying your pics and videos from this morning were great. What kind of little lizard thing was that you saw? I wish I had some orange ones too, because it looked really cool. I'll be honest with you, Aaron. I have never looked up. I'm assuming it's a salamander. It's probably a specific salamander at a specific stage of its life. But those are the most powerful things that I see on my or maybe I should say creatures on my hikes. Whenever I see one of those little orange things, I have a connection. My energy and my state immediately raise, and it keeps me going. It's one. I don't see them when I hike in the winter, obviously, but during these months that they're around, it is my mascot. That's the way I look at it, right? But it was definitely pretty cool when I got to see the turtle too, which is pretty cool. All right, guys, we're over an hour. I'll be honest, about 20 minutes before I did today's thing, I was like, all right, I got to get my energy up. My energy's not, but as soon as I start going, I have a good time. And I credit you guys with a lot of that. So I appreciate you all. Thank you for hanging out. Make sure you check out link in the description. Get on the emails if you're not getting them. Those of you guys that are watching that are going to PressureCon this weekend, I look forward to seeing you then. For the rest of you, I'll see you guys next week. And as always, men and women, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.